will talk today about the research strategies. Assume that you have already selected the research topic. You have formulated the aim of your research and the research question, and you have done the literature review, which means you have read all relevant literature about the previous research and about the theory, framework or model that you want to use for your research. What is then the next step? The next step is to answer your research question. But can you immediately answer a well-formulated research question? No. In order to answer your question, you need to follow the rules or guidelines of the scientific research. What does this mean? This means that you need to create carefully the design for your research, where each step will follow the guidelines and the research and the rules for the scientific research. But what is this? What are these rules? These rules say that you need to select the research strategy or the approach for the problem that you're addressing. Then you need to collect your own data, because most of the empirical research collects primary data. To collect the data, you need some method, some scientific method for data collection. And then you also need the method to analyze the data collected. When doing the research design, you also need to have in mind the ethical issues which arise always when you deal with humans. So if you collect data from humans or animals, then you need to take care about the ethics in the region where you're doing data collection. All these steps of the research design or the methodology can be easily presented with a flowchart. Let's look now at another view of the research process. We talked about the steps of the research process, but we didn't go into details, especially regarding the research strategy, the data collection and data analysis. This chart shows that the research questions have been defined and the conceptual framework selected, and that the next steps are these three main issues: selecting the research strategy, and here we have example of several research strategies and several data collection methods. And for the data analysis, we have these two broad areas in data analysis. One is quantitative, the other is qualitative, and the quantitative usually deal with quantitative data that are numeric, while in qualitative analysis we are dealing with qualitative data in the form of text, videos, pictures, sounds, and so on. But let's now explain what research strategy is. It is actually a plan or a general approach on how to address the research problem, how to achieve the aim of the research study, and how to answer your research question. Once the research problem and the aim and the questions are defined and you have done the literature review, you need to select the research strategy. And there are some common research strategies. However, you can also have combination of those or even completely new strategy that you are going to implement. Let's look at some common research strategies. Surveys are often used when the research question can be answered by asking people about whatever is needed to answer the research question. It is very often used in economics or in social sciences. Case studies are used when the problem can be addressed by studying a particular setting or a few settings. For example, you want to study how employees experience the change in the policy of the company. Then often you cannot go to many companies and do the research in these companies. Instead, you select one or two companies and you do the research there. Experiments are used when the problem asks to identify factors that influence something. They are usually used also in social sciences, for example, very often in human-computer interaction, where you want to identify factors that influence the user experience with certain new technology. Ethnography is used when the problem is related to cultural practices and traditions, usually in anthropology, where these cultures are studied, and where the researcher actually embeds himself or herself within the area where certain tradition or culture is practiced. Phenomenology is a strategy that looks at some phenomenon. When the problem is about a phenomenon and it can as a seen through the eyes of the others, then this kind of strategy is convenient to use. Grounding theory is also a strategy, or some researchers consider it as data collection method. However, it is implemented whenever you need to build some theory from the data, and it is used when you're addressing some problem that will lead to deriving new concepts and theories. Action research is convenient strategy usually in education. It can be used when some practical problem needs to be solved or the best practice is found. For example, when you look at the difficulties students have to solve certain problem, then you invent or suggest how this difficulty can be overcome and test it. So that's action, then you're doing action research. Design science is the strategy where you create or build certain artifact. It can be a framework, a model, a tool, a software, etc. Then you have laboratory experiments in experimental sciences, where the problem requires to go to the laboratory and do certain experiments. When real-world experiments are not possible for various reasons, simulation is used. So simulation can be also one research strategies. And as I said, there are others, and I suggest that you look at the strategies that are used in the particular discipline where your research is located. Thank you for listening.